John with Ember Learning, talking about difficult conversations. I got a question for you. Have you ever been thrust into a difficult conversation that you were not able to prepare for? Well, if you're like me, it's happened a lot. And the insight about, there's a difference between whether you can prepare for a difficult conversation or whether you're not able to prepare for one, about how to be effective in them. Those are two completely different tracks that you need to run on. I want to talk to you about those two tracks. I want to help and empower you to do a good job of preparing for whatever the difficult conversation that you're aware is coming up. There's a way to lean into that, but that you would be ready for when one gets thrust upon you and you've had no time to prepare for it. That's a completely different track. I want you ready for both of those tracks. All right, so I want to talk to you about what happens when I can prepare for the difficult conversation. There's a track I want to just encourage you to run on. And the first part of any time you get a chance to prepare is just that you would prepare you. Prepare managing your own heart. Prepare about leaning into the conversation. A good question is, listen, is this difficult conversation going to be difficult because of what's happening within you or because of what's happening between you and the other party? There's a difference in that. The reason this is a difficult conversation is I feel insecure and I don't know what's really going on inside of me is different than, hey, you and I have a different perspective and we need to bring resolution to that. And so that's part of it, is prepare you, prepare your heart and get in touch with what's really going on. All right, learn how to manage your heart, lean into that. Don't let emotions get out of control. What are going to be some of the potholes that you would need to avoid in the conversation? Prepare you, prepare yourself for leaning into that conversation. Prepare that, you know what, this isn't going to feel good. That's the nature of difficult conversations. They don't feel good. Be ready for that. Don't be surprised by that. And so that's part of it, is prepare you. The second thing is prepare from a standpoint of framing the conversation. Start with the end in mind. My goal in this difficult conversation is to strengthen the relationship even while we're having conflict. That's really important, is to frame the conversation that way. And if you frame it that way, then the next point about starting well becomes real apparent. And what do I mean by starting well is I want you to have a couple of sentences up front that you're ready to start the conversation with. And in those couple of opening sentences, you want to frame invitation to the other party. I want to hear what you're thinking. I want to make room for your thoughts. I want to do this with you, not to you. That's the frame that's going to be most effective. So have that phraseology ready. All right, and so I'm preparing my own heart, step one. Step two is I'm going to start well. I'm going to invite the other party into the conversation. That's really, really crucial. Point three, if I'm able to prepare for it, is be courageous about sharing your thoughts. I'm going to make room for the other party, but I also want to be very proactive about sharing what I'm thinking, and that takes courage. It takes courage to be candid. Some people by personality are good at being gracious. Some people by personality are really good at being candid. In a difficult conversation, you want to be really good at both of those. I want to make room for your thoughts. I want to be gracious, but I'm going to be very pointed about my thoughts. I'm going to be candid. And so I want to work up the issue of courage about what are the things I really need to say in that conversation. That's point three. Point four is talking about just ending well. Where are we in consensus? What are we agreeing upon? Where do we go from here? What accountability can I put into place? And so when you're preparing for a difficult conversation, prepare yourself, all right? Be in touch with just what's going on inside of you. Start well, be courageous, end well by accountability and consensus and agreement. Now that's if I got a track in terms of I got time to prepare. That's the track to run on when you're doing that. Talked about planned difficult conversations. Now I want to talk to you about unplanned difficult conversations, a completely different track that we need to run on. Because all of a sudden we're going along and we find ourselves in one and we had no chance to prepare. What do we do about that? And so it's a different track. Let me talk to you about that track. If you're thrust into a difficult conversation and all of a sudden you're not been able to be prepared for it, what do you do about that? I want you to have a track already thought through in your mind about whenever you find yourself in a difficult conversation that you weren't able to plan for, you fall back to this track. And what it is our 6-step model. The first one is realize that you're in a difficult conversation. All of a sudden you're in a conversation with your spouse, and all of a sudden you say something and you can tell that didn't get received real well and that you're heading right into a difficult conversation. The sooner you can realize that, the better off you're going to be. you find yourself driving with your teenager and they're worked up and they're agitated and they're emotional and they're real upset with you, it's like the quicker I can realize that, the better off I'm going to be able to respond. Track 2 is the whole point about that is this an appropriate time? It may be that if we have this difficult conversations now, it's going to turn destructive. Well, then let's not have that difficult conversation. But it's not always possible just to get out of jail free card. Like all of a sudden, hey, you know what? Let's not do this now. But you might be able to do that. Say, hey, I really want to have this conversation. It doesn't work to have it now. So if that is an appropriate thought, that you really don't think this is a good time for it, you can try and do that. Sometimes that won't work. Sometimes the heat of the moment is going to force you to lean into it. So then the third one is collect puzzle pieces. Make an environment for the other party's thoughts. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm feeling. I'm not doing this to you. I'm doing it with you. We're catching puzzle pieces. We want to be psychologically safe as we build an environment for us to be able to share what we're really thinking and feeling. So, point 1, realize. Point 2 is just appropriate in terms of, is this the right time? And maybe we just have to keep moving forward whether we think it's appropriate or not. Third one is we're going to collect puzzle pieces. We're going to create an environment, give and take of each other's thoughts and ideas and what they're feeling. The fourth point, though, is while we're collecting puzzle pieces, we need to manage pie. All right, that's the fourth step. I'm managing perspective, insecurities, and emotion, because those are the big 3 derailers of difficult conversations. I want to understand that we probably have different perspectives, and that's what it is. I need to learn how to get outside my own perspective to better hear what the other party's really saying. I don't want to be locked into my thoughts. That'll make for a really difficult environment to make it room for theirs. Get outside your perspective. Really seek to understand the other perspective. We're talking about something and I feel insecure. I got some squishy spots. I know if I'm talking to my wife about certain things, I feel incredibly vulnerable and a little overwhelmed in that. Manage that. Don't let that derail the conversation. Emotions. Difficult conversations involve emotions. I want to make room not just for what you're thinking, but what you're feeling. And I got to manage my own heart in that about what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And so managing emotions is really, really crucial. Perspective, insecurities, emotions, PIE, are really, really crucial. That's the fourth step. The sixth point then is finish well. Come to consensus, come to agreement. What are we deciding? How do we bring resolution to this? And then build some mechanism for accountability about how do we move forward in such a way that we're really working together on it. And so that's the sixth point. All right, so when I can't plan for it, have a track to run on in the midst of the difficulty of all of a sudden you're thrust into one. And so those 6 steps become really, really crucial. I believe you got to memorize them. You got to have them available in your pocket because difficult conversations drop out of the sky. That's the nature of relationships. That's the nature of work environments. And so that you would feel comfortable enough about how do I manage this? How do I manage this? How do I manage this? Fall back into your track. Okay, realize. And just like, is this the best timing, appropriate? The third step, collect puzzle pieces. Fourth step, manage pie. Fifth step, we're just going to keep it all on track. Sixth step, we're going to come to closure on it effectively. Have that track to run on. It just really, really empowers you to stay engaged in the conversation even while it's not feeling comfortable. And so when you can't plan for them, have a track to run on. It's really, really crucial. So again, it's a privilege to be with you. I love this opportunity to just share some of these things because it's going to be really, really important. Sometimes you're going to have the ability to prepare for the difficult conversation, and there's sometimes it's going to be thrust upon you. You need to be empowered in both of those 2 different tracks to be effective with difficult conversations. It's really, really crucial. It's a privilege to be with you. If you would just go ahead and you'll see a button right to your right. I got a document that would really help you. 9 reasons why difficult conversations are so hard and what to do about it. Go ahead and just click on that and we'll share that document with you. Look around the website, emberlearning.net. Great resources to share with you. Again, privileged to be with you. Thanks.